Well, my friends, it's the next day and my boo-boo has been fixed. And I seriously don't think that anybody would be able to tell which one was cut. You know, there's two boards there. Which one of those got cut, I don't think you can tell. I really can't. I can't even tell, honestly, this close. If I really look close, I can see a teeniest, tiniest line right there. And I think this is the one that got cut. Well, I fooled myself. This is the one that got cut. Right here, I can see the line. I mean, seriously, I'm not exaggerating. That's how good it is. Right there, I can see the line. Otherwise, I cannot see the line anywhere. So it's as good as it gets. Yeah, you would never know that was cut. So I got lucky one time in my life. I'll take it. I got the sides thinned yesterday down to my specs. So now we're going to work on the bending process, but the problem is I don't have a mold that will fit this extra little point here. And so this extra little body point has to be accounted for. And what I think I'm going to do is just modify the mold I have, because I don't think it'll hurt anything, even if I go back to building just standard mandolins without this. I think it'll be fine. So I'm going to bring that mold over here and we're going to look at it and see what we can come up with. Okay, so I've got the top just laying on here. It looks like it fits the mold pretty well, and therefore I think I can just draw that in and we should be good to go. I'll take a little time with it here and kind of check it against the top and the back. The problem is with that, I'll have to invert it, but it should be okay as long as I've got these two lined up and they look real good. Now I'm going to curl this just a little bit here because it's not perfect yet. In other words, I would want to smooth this out a little better. It's still not quite what I'm looking for, I don't think. Looks like that's just about where I want it. So I think all I have to do is trace this right here. And I don't think that's going to hurt anything if I just cut that out, you know, shape that up. I don't think that'll hurt anything. Let's double check it to make sure it's still right. It looks right to me. All right, so now the idea is how do I cut that? Can't really do it on the bandsaw because I can't take this mold apart. Could do it with just a coping saw, I suppose. It's probably my best bet. Or a jigsaw, you know, a handheld jigsaw. But the problem is with this mess here, and there's not much to rest the jigsaw on, and those things can really cause you trouble if you don't get them just right. So I'll probably do it with a coping saw. Well, I'm going to use this little coping saw to try to saw this out. And I just picked up just a scrap board here that just happens to be about the right height to match my table that can support this a little bit. Anyway, it's a little sketchy, but on the other hand, I think it's all I need.
An old battered case, weathered and worn, with the hinges all rusted and the fabric all torn.
Well, particle board's a little bit more, you know, crackly than I expected. In other words, it's breaking up a little bit more than I thought it would. I figured it would hold together really well. It doesn't, of course, because it doesn't have to. That just makes it that much more challenging, and anything that can be more challenging is pretty much the name of the game.
But still cradled inside was one old precious thing. It was Grandpa's old fiddle, oh how sweetly it rings.
Wow. Yeah, isn't that special? Well, I sort of think that worked. It didn't exactly work like I was expecting it to, but it sort of kind of worked. I think I just need to round off some parts. One of those parts would be this point right here.
Grandpa's old fiddle played sweet melodies. He played it from his heart for my grandpa and me. Wrinkled old hands, he held it with love, and I can still hear it laying up in heaven above.
That looks pretty good, actually. Even a little better than I was thinking it was going to turn out like. It looks pretty decent. Let's put this back together so that it holds itself there a little bit. Set it in there a little better that way. It doesn't fall through, and I can kind of take my time and look at it a little closer. Alright, I think it just needs a little bit more on this upper part. Otherwise, I think it's pretty good. Well, I don't know, guys. I think that's probably as good as I'm going to get it. Almost fits down through there like it fits the rest of it.
The most honest man that I ever have seen, and his time on this old earth was most precious to me.
So there you go. The price you pay for just a little extra flair. Actually, it does fit down in there now. Well, not quite. Almost, boy. It's really close to fitting down in there. Now, these two little curves right here are going to be fun to bend. I bet you that much. I'm hoping we can meet the challenge. We'll just have to see how it goes. I think I'm going to start by trying to bend the very sharp little point area here. Right in this the new little extra point. I'm going to try bending that first. I've beveled the back side of it, or the inside, I guess I should say, the inside of that, so that that little point will come out to a point. I've squared it off and beveled it. Anyway, let's give it a shot and let's see if we can do this. I honestly really don't know. I think it'll work, but I may be fooling myself. I'm going to just kind of preheat this all a little bit. I'm steaming it, just softening it up maybe a little. Just cause I can, I guess. I don't even know where to start, hardly. Just going to give it a start at the beginning here and see what happens.
He lived on Current River at the mouth of Blue Springs, and at night the hills echoed as the old fiddle would ring.
The idea is to make that fit up in there. I don't know how well this is going to work. I'm afraid that my little top piece here, it's got two different sizes on it by accident. That wasn't on purpose. But anyway, because of that, that may cause me a problem here. I don't know. It's going to be difficult, I know that. Just going to have to try to go slow and see what happens.
Grandpa's old fiddle played sweet melodies. He played it from his heart for my grandma and me. Wrinkled old hands, he held it with love, and I can still hear it laying up in heaven above.
I think I'm going to have to make myself an insert that goes over this, the full width of this, because this is not working. Yeah, I'm just going to have to pause and do that. Well, I've quickly went over and made a brass bushing that will fit over this, and that'll make it smooth at least. Now it's going to take it a while for that to heat up. That might be a little while before I'm ready to start bending again, but at least now we've got a smooth surface and one that's probably real close to the proper radius. I'll probably just leave that on there from now on, even though it's loose. I wish I would have made it a little bit tighter fitting that I could have pressed it on, but it'll be all right. All right, let's see how well it works now.
Just a boy at the time, I remember a day.
That worked pretty well. Still gonna need some more.
Old tunes he did play. Well, now Grandpa, he has left us for heaven above, but he left me that old fiddle, and now I play it with love.
I will say this kind of wood does bend fairly easy compared to the curly, just straight curly maple. So the bending is not the big issue with this, though it does kind of bend a little bit, kind of crunchy. I don't know how to explain it, but where those curls are, it likes to bend and fold and bend and fold. It doesn't bend perfectly smooth, but it doesn't break, which is really good. It actually bends easier than just about any wood I've ever bent for a mandolin. From that standpoint, it would be an easy one to build with your first mandolin, but from the carving and sanding and all that other standpoint, I don't think I would use it.
Grandpa's old fiddle played sweet melodies. He played it from his heart for my grandma and me.
Just about perfect. I need a little bit more curl up here, I think. I thought I had enough, but I think I need a little bit more.
Wrinkled old hands, he held it with love, and I can still hear it playing up in heaven above. The old fiddle is ringing up in heaven above.
That's just about perfect right there. I don't think I could get it much better. So I'm happy with that. I still need to bend the deep scroll up here, and maybe I'll do that next. So I'll get a piece ready for that, and then I'll show you how that goes. Okay, to make that other bend, I've done the exact opposite here. I've beveled this inside also, and now we just got to bend it to match that other curve, and let's see if it'll work.
In a little village graveyard, he was standing all alone as he read the inscription chiseled deep in stone. He fought back the tears as he read every line, while visions of this brave man moved slowly through his mind.
I think I'll go with that for right now and see if I can get the other rest of the scroll part bent.
He knew he was a hero, though they had never met. He had learned of his heroic deeds from all the other vets. They told of his courage, honor and iron will. The only thing could stop him were those big guns on the hill.
Holding it there extra long to try to dry the wood in that shape. Did a pretty good job. Need to go a little bit further with it, I think. It's going to be difficult to bend this last little bit of a curve back again. I cut off the extra because it was just too awkward. I'm hoping I can get a little more curl in this very tip here. And ironically, I need a smaller curl almost. As small as this one is, it's still almost too big.
Many young men died on that fateful day. Many young men cried for the pain to go away.
I think that'll work, so let's try this next piece. I remembered it bending easy, but it even bends easier than I remember.
Our world is a better place for the sacrifice that gave. That's why on June the 7th, his son visits his grave.
kind of weird when you get too much bend in something. I think I've got too much bend in this one. That doesn't happen that often. Usually you never get enough. I'll straighten it back out just a little bit. Not too bad. And of course, now that I straightened it out, I need to bend it some more again. It just doesn't quit.
As he charged the beach on Normandy, he set the standards high.
Just two more little pieces to bend. Could almost make the whole thing out of two pieces. I'm going to have to get into a third piece here yet. All right, just one more piece to bend and we'll be finished. So I'm just bending the part that goes up around the, meets up with the neck and the first body point. I was going to bend the other end, but this end doesn't have much curl in it, so I'm going to use this end.
For all those who would follow him and all those who would die, they say he never once looked back, though wounded he crawled on. There are many heroes fallen there on that fateful dawn.
So there's what she looks like. It all fits up. I don't have the blocks made yet, but everything fits up pretty well. And you can see that extra little body point thing is going to work out, I think, just fine. I'll show you what it looks like when we get to the next step. My friends, yet another day has dawned on this project. And, you know, I don't get a lot done on a daily basis anymore for a lot of reasons. Main reason right now, because it's winter, I'm burning so much firewood that I have to stop and cut firewood in the afternoons quite often, not every day, but very often. And that wouldn't be so bad if I didn't have so many equipment breakdowns. So I had just about as many equipment breakdowns to fix as I did firewood to cut. So, you know, it's just not easy being me. That's all I can tell you. On a bit of trivia, this is the first mandolin that I've ever bent the sides before I've cut out these blocks. I've always cut out the blocks first before I've bent the sides. Well, this one is different. I didn't do that. Wasn't an oversight. I just thought, oh, what the heck, I can bend the sides and then I'll cut these out later. But always in the past, I've always cut these out first. The advantage of cutting them out first, of course, is that you can glue them right in right away, but, you know, 6 in one, half a dozen in the other, you know what I mean? It's pretty much the same thing. All right, so that piece is there. Trying to maximize my material. So I'm going to put this piece up like that to get it in here. I'll probably have to put a new blade on the bandsaw before I even cut these out, because that blade is cutting terrible at this point. A little teeny bit of spalting right up here, but I think I can cut 90% of that little bit of spalting out and it won't hurt anything anyway. And I can maximize my material here and have very little waste by doing it the way I'm doing. I could probably make 2 more sets of blocks out of this stuff. And out of the waste here, I'll have enough to make the little filler spot for that new point I added. Though I may not need a filler spot there. I'll just have to play that one by ear. All right, well, we'll move over to the bandsaw and saw this out. Just keeping with the theme that it's not easy to be me, before I can saw out those little blocks, I needed to put a blade on this bandsaw, as I mentioned. And not only that, but these have locked up. Now they do spin sort of, but they've kind of locked up. They're not spinning freely, and because they're not spinning freely, I thought I better take them off and clean them. And yeah, it's just keeping with that theme of not easy being me. Yeah, you know, most people, well, I don't know. Maybe everybody has this problem with these things locking up, especially on the lower. I don't have too much trouble with the upper ones, but the lower ones below the table always get, you know, full of sawdust or whatever and lock up. Even though they're supposed to be sealed bearings. You know, you could replace them, but what I do typically is put them in acetone and lacquer thinner and keep spinning them, and then it works the dirt out of them. It works really good, and then you can spin them and they spin perfectly. So that's what I do, just to save buying them all the time. This one here doesn't get too bad because it's rolling this way. These, because they're turned this other direction for some reason, they get locked up easy. The ones up here don't really have much problem, the ones above. But anyway, that's what I'm doing before I can put a new blade on. Well, I thought I was going to be able to clean these out real easy, but unfortunately, they're playing hard to get along with. So I'm going to take the little guard out of here. I don't know, some people probably don't realize you can do that, but you can, well, under good circumstances. Right now, it doesn't appear to be a good circumstance. They usually pop right out, but of course, this one's playing hard to get. There it is. The reason I'm popping that out of there is because these are not cooperating. They're not spinning. I'm not even sure it's worth leaving these guards in there. I mean, I think I'm going to do an experiment. I think on one side, I'm going to leave these little guards off, and on the other side, I'm going to put them back in and see which one locks up the worst. Because these just lock up like crazy. It's just unbelievable. I almost think if they're open, they'll lock up less. Like right now, that one now, with it being open, it's starting to spin. It wouldn't spin before. Now it's spinning. See, now it's spinning perfectly. Yeah, you throw them in and out of there a couple of times. That makes them clean up a lot faster. Man, I think I'm just going to take the guards off. I mean, they might fill up quicker. I don't know. I'll save the guards, and if I really... Like, there you go. Look how much crud is in there. Can you see all the crud? All the crud right in here? There's just tons of it. And that's with the guard on. I think if the guard's not there, the crud will fall out. I'm going to leave the guards off, see how well that works, because this isn't working this way. It seems like every week I have to clean these things out, and that gets old. I just wonder if everybody that has a bandsaw has this problem. And these are the expensive rollers and things that I put on there, the guides. I forget what they're, Carlson or somebody like that. And I really do like them. They're very good in terms of adjustments and all that, but they lock up just like the cheap ones do. With that guard on there, I can't get this to spin at all. Take the guard off and you can wash it out really quick. So I think I'm just going to leave the guards off. You can't really lube them up much because the lube attracts even more sawdust. So if you put oil on them, you're just really asking for trouble. Because these were so filthy, I think I'm going to put some fresh cleaner in here and run them through one more time. Okay, so there's the clean stuff. Let's see if we get any more out of these now that we've cleaned them up once, and we'll run them through again. See if we get anything else out. I'd wear gloves, but the lacquer thinner would eat up the gloves, so it doesn't eat up my fingers. Okay, I know I'm going to catch all kinds of grief over that. Too bad, so sad. I've heard lacquer thinner is a good treatment for arthritis, so there you go. No, actually, they were pretty clean. Well, there's a teeny bit of grit I'm seeing in there. There's just a little bit, but overall, they're pretty clean. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to matter to leave the seals out, if that's a big mistake, but I'm going to leave them out because it doesn't work with them in. I know that for sure. Ask me how I know. Yes, I know you're supposed to put the table back on before you put the blade in there, but I also find that it's very difficult to line these up, get your wrenches on here. I actually find it's better to just do it without the table on and then put the table on after you get the blade all set perfectly. Now, I don't do it that way ordinarily, but since I have the table off anyway, I've done this before where I've just put the blade on and then put the table back on. That's what I'm going to try to do again this time. It may be a mistake. It's only the second time I've done it this way, but it gives me the ability to line the blade up really good with these rollers where I don't have any trouble. So that's what I'm going to do. Another thing I always do is clean these wheels off. I've just done that off camera. So the big wheels, the rubber treads, I take a knife, and I spin these and I just hold the knife blade against there, and that just scrapes all the stuff off. Anyway, they're clean. Let's see if we can get this blade on here and get it lined up perfectly. This is a 3/8 blade, 6 teeth per inch, so it's fairly coarse, but I find these little 3/8 blades with that kind of teeth to be really good for just about everything. So that's what I use. I just try to get it roughly lined up on the wheels best I can before I tension it. This has a tensioning lever back here on the back, and then you need to turn this other deal, the top screw, which you can't really see me doing that, but I'm turning this top screw to raise the wheel up to the 3/8 mark. You know, I think I'm going to have to adjust almost everything because I had a bigger blade in here. I had a 1/2-inch blade in here, so I pretty much got to adjust everything again. First thing I want to do is make sure the blade is kind of running down the center of the wheel. It's running a little bit on the front of the wheel, but that's not too bad. I got to get over here where I can adjust this thing and turn the blade at the same time to see what it's doing. There we go. Yeah, that moved it pretty much to the center. Maybe a little too far. Looks just about dead center right there. And now we'll adjust all this stuff. Looks like it's going to take an extra wrench, of course. I think this is made in America, so I think it takes American adjustments here. So, got to get the right one here. Loosen this up and slide it back. About 2/3 of the blade involved with the rollers, almost 3/4, or maybe it is 3/4. You know, I leave the teeth sticking out, obviously, proud of the roller, so that the teeth aren't going through the roller. So it always helps when they make 3 or 4 sizes of Allens on something like this. And then what I do is turn it by hand, and I try to get it where the blade is touching the roller, but the roller's not quite spinning yet. And that's where I'm at. So I'm going to tighten that down. Now we got to do the adjustment this way. And the rollers on this side are touching, so we need to move everything that way a little bit. That's funny how that's not tightening down. I thought that just tightened through this front thing. And I'm sure it does, but it's not working. I think it's this Allen wrench. I can't really get it in there good, and I think that's my problem. It's binding on me before I get it in there. Like I said, it's not ever easy. See if I can find a different wrench that'll get in here. This one fits it. All right, so let's spin it again. Okay, that one's not touching. This top one is. Try to get them where they're just basically touching the blade but not spinning. That one looks good right there. This one's still a little far away, I think. That's pretty good. Alright, now we'll tighten them down now to make sure they don't move on me. And then we'll do the other side to try to get it close the other way. This keeps your blade from wandering. If you let your blade wander, then you'll get weird cuts. So you want your blade to be pretty solid, but not touch anything and bind. And that's a little too close. That looks like that's it right there. Real close. Very little adjustment there. Very little movement on the blade before it hits the roller. That's what you want. Real close, but not pinching. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's real good. It really doesn't move, but yet the rollers aren't spinning. That's just perfect, really. Now this back roller is actually spinning a little bit. Let me see if the bottom one's spinning. No, it's not. Well, actually the top one's not really spinning either. I think we're right on the money. I'm going to call that good. Now I'm just going to make sure everything's tight, because you don't want to do all that and then have it move on you. I think everything's tight. No noise at all on the rollers, but yet they're really close. So I think it's perfect. Let me show you what I'm talking about putting this blade on. It's not that easy to do because it's heavy, but it's not impossible to do either. So you just slide the blade on like so, come to your round hole here, and then set it down on your deal. And of course one side went in perfect, the other side didn't. Yep, I think that's it. You know, you might use that as a tip that it's not that hard to set up your blade without the table on there. Lots of people do it with the table on. I prefer, now that I've done it a couple of times this way, I really do prefer to have the table on. My table has always been really square, but now's the time to check that too. And I just set this on here and eye down the blade. I'm just getting down here where I can eye it and look at it. And quite honestly, it's a teeny bit off. In other words, this needs to go up. That means this side needs to go down. I mean, it's only off by a tiny, tiny amount, but I'm going to adjust it. All right, to adjust this, there's a locking nut on this adjustment bolt. I've loosened the locking nut, and I'm turning the bolt by hand because it's not hard to turn. I've dropped it down a hair. And based on my line of sight here, it's really, really close. I'm going to go a little bit more. I'd say that's as close to perfect as you can get. I'm going to call that good. And now I'm going to, actually, I'm going to hold this table in position here where I can get access to this better. I'm going to hold the head of the nut, the head of the bolt still, where it can't go down, and I'm going to tighten the nut down. Now I'll drop it back down onto there, tighten this up, and then lay this up here one more time. You know, I don't know, it's pretty dang close. I could almost make a case that it needs to go a hair more. Turn it on this side just to see what it looks like on this side. I'd say it's fine. Probably closer than most. You know what? I think we're almost ready to cut out those blocks now. After making all those adjustments, the prudent thing to do is to, of course I've turned it by hand already. The prudent thing to do now is to turn it on and see that the blade is doing what it's supposed to do before I start cutting. I hear that noise. I've heard that before. I don't think that's coming out of these bearings. I think it's coming out of the main bearing up here on this shaft, I think. I really don't know where that's coming from. It doesn't appear to be binding. It's just a bad sounding bearing. Everything else seems to be okay. I'm just going to have to live with that and make this cut.
Many young men died on that fateful day. Many young men cried for their pain to go away. Our world is a better place for the sacrifice they gave. That's why on June the 7th, his son visits his grave. In a little village graveyard, he was standing all alone as he read the inscription chiseled deep in stone.
Well, those bearings are fairly noisy, but anyway, it is what it is. It's cutting very well. I don't have any problems with the way it was cutting. It was cutting beautifully. So all that worked out just fine. Now we'll see if we can fit this up to the sides. I'm going to take the opportunity to try to smooth off the inside of this, because once you get it attached to the sides, you can do that, but it's a lot harder. It's hard enough this way. So I'm just going to try to smooth it out. You know, the saw marks and things are in there. Nobody can really see them. If they stayed there, it really kind of doesn't hurt anything. But, you know, this is the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human, or at least it's supposed to be. So you can't leave anything undone. It's always best to go from two sides whenever you're doing something like this. Quite honestly, it probably is about as good as it needs to be right now, because I'll have to do this again once I get the sides, or once I get the top plate attached. I'll have to go in there and make this all fit together. So I'll have to do this again. Possibly even have to saw it a little bit. I like to get it as close as I can before I get to all that. It's pretty decent. It's not perfect. I can still see one line in there, and I see it especially in the camera. It looks worse than it is. It's not very bad. In terms of that line, you can barely see it with your eye, but it showed up in the camera. Kind of unusual, because usually it's the other way around. I can usually see it with my eye, and I cannot see it in the camera. There's one there that I didn't get out with the other sander. I thought I had it all out of there, but that one's a little line right there. I'll go over to the oscillating sander for that one, and maybe a little more around here too. So a little more work on the oscillating sander, and then I think we're ready to at least try to get it to fit in the sides. Well, I have to be honest, that was one of the hardest ones I've ever folded together. It worked out really nice. I'm real happy with it, but boy, it was tough. This little extra curve really did make it a lot more complicated, but it's working, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I think it's time to get the glue on it. So I'll get me some newspaper, cover my table here, and get going. Okay, we'll work on this. I've decided to use the Type Bond 3 on this instrument. It'll be the first one I've really glued together with Type Bond 3. Now, I'll use original any place that we might need to take it apart, like a fingerboard or anything like that. But pretty much on everything else, I'm going to use Type Bond 3. In other words, if it's something I absolutely do not want to come apart, I've been reading and hearing and watching and seeing that Type Bond 3 is really about the strongest wood glue there is. At least that's what I'm understanding. And, you know, because it's waterproof too, it just makes sense. I think Type Bond Original would be perfectly fine, don't get me wrong. And I've been an advocate of that for a long time. But, you know, I'm building the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human, so I might as well go all out. It's going to be fun getting glue on some of these things, I can tell you. Like this part right in here. I think I'm just going to put the glue on this piece. Now if we can get this back down in here, we'll be doing pretty well. Aha, went. Not too bad, not too bad. I can handle that. Get something to cooperate for a change, I'm okay with that. Filling out to the mold really well, even better than I thought it would. So I'm pretty happy with that. This head block up here is not quite as good as the rest of it, but it's not bad, it's just giving me a little bit of trouble. See if I can loosen this back up. Force that side up in there a little bit better. I think that'll help. Maybe even just put a little more glue on this, because I have a feeling I'm gonna need all we can get on this one. get some wedges and do some wedging here to make this all work out. I'll show you what it looks like when I get her wedged up. Well, there she is all wedged up. That's the, I guess you'd say, the back. This would be the top over here. And it worked out real nice. I'm pretty happy with it. We'll just have to give it some time and see where we go from here.